Good afternoon. For those of you who may not remember from 2 weeks ago or whom I never met, my name is Bob Rubin. And along with Jason Sheffield, who I think y'all met, we represent Travis McMichael. This case is about duty and responsibility.
I didn't want to interrupt you. I was trying to get your co-counsel, but if you could get, you can understand you may wander. If we could try to get close to the microphone for the court reporter.
Yes, sir. It's about Travis McMichael's duty and responsibility to himself, to his family, and to his neighborhood. And it's about your duty and responsibility as jurors. The state talked about actions based on assumptions. I'm going to talk about facts. Facts in this case. Travis McMichael is 35 years old. He's single, and he has a 5-year-old son named Everett. From 2007 until 2016, Travis McMichael was in the United States Coast Guard. He was a boarding officer in the Coast Guard, which means he was authorized to make arrests. He was authorized to do investigations. He was authorized to do searches. He was authorized to use his weapon when appropriate. In order to become a boarding officer, he attended FLETC in Charleston, the Federal Law Enforcement Training Center. You all know that acronym. At FLETC, he took the training that allowed him to do the law enforcement activities that he did for 10 years or 9 years. He learned how to do searches and seizures. He learned what probable cause was, a legal term that you'll hear more about. He learned how to use firearms in a safe, effective way. He learned how to use force in compliance with his training. The training he had was not just classroom training at FLETC. It is scenario-based training. It is repetitive training so that if you're ever in a real-life situation where you need to make use of force decisions, you're relying, not just thinking back, you're relying on muscle memory. Because those split seconds are often the difference between life and death. But not only did Travis McMichael get training at FLETC in all of these law enforcement activities, searches and seizures, investigations, report writing, use of firearms, use of force decision making. But every year he was in the Coast Guard, he had additional training. And every year in the Coast Guard, when he became efficient enough, he then became a trainer of the trainees. He was training the trainers. He was training his fellow Coast Guardsmen on the law enforcement activities, on how to be a boarding officer. After he left the Coast Guard, and in 2020, Travis was working for Metzen Marine as a coxswain. He's working at the naval base, moving boats around. He was living at home with his mom, Lee, and his father, Greg, his sister, Lindsay, and his son, Everett, who was then 3 years old. He was living at home because the apartment he was living in previously had been sold by his landlord. So he needed to live back at home, save some money so he could go back out on his own again. He was living, as the state told you earlier, in Satilla Shores. This is a low-tech map of Satilla Shores because I don't trust PowerPoint. You'll see a PowerPoint, but I don't trust it that much. So this is a regular map of it. Google Earth map. Highway 17 up here, Satilla Drive here, 230 Satilla Drive. This is just to acclimate you. This is Jones Road, and I know it's hard for all jurors maybe to see this, but you'll see this many times throughout the case. And we'll talk more about the rest of it. But he lived on Satilla Drive in Satilla Shores. Satilla Shores is a quiet, scenic, middle-class neighborhood. The kind of neighborhood where parents let the kids ride around on their bikes. The kind of neighborhood where, when you're my age, you go for a walk after dinner. The kind of neighborhood that we all kind of aspire to live in. It's safe, it's beautiful, you work in the yard, you play on the river. This is the family and community that Travis McMichael felt a duty and responsibility to during the course of events in 2019 and 2020. This is the family and community that made him willing to put himself at risk to help the police detain Ahmaud Arbery. The video that you watched probably 5 times in the state's opening statement doesn't even begin to tell the story in this case. It's like looking through that knothole in the fence and thinking you see the whole baseball field when you really only see the outfield. The case really begins months before in 2019 because Satilla Shores was a neighborhood on edge. Crime had gone up. It wasn't violent crime. It was property crimes. The kind of crimes that are unsettling. The kind of crimes that are scary. Because you don't know who's coming onto your property, who's in your car ransacking it, who's breaking into your buildings, who's stealing your lawnmowers or your guns. And so the neighborhood was on edge. So much so that behaviors began to change by the neighbors. Kids were not allowed, some kids, to play outside after dark. Residents of Satilla Shores installed home surveillance cameras to catch the thieves that were taking their property. And neighbors in Satilla Shores felt a duty and responsibility to each other to post on the neighborhood pages, Facebook and Nextdoor, about the crime that was happening. And you'll hear about that. The types of posts that you saw on these pages includes, "This is ridiculous. My daughter always freaks out. It's getting old. I'm nervous. Lock your cars." These are actual posts from that neighborhood Facebook page. As a result of this uptick in crime, of people being on edge, people were alert to suspicious behavior. In July of 2019, Travis McMichael and Greg McMichael were alert to suspicious behavior, long before ever encountering Ahmaud Arbery. In July of 2019, Travis McMichael, who was at that point running a little charter boat, taking people out, tourists out on the river, in the marshes, was on his boat with some guests when he went under the Fancy Bluffs Bridge that you heard about earlier. There he saw a homeless man who had lots of stuff around him and a tarp. Stuff, the kind of stuff that made Travis look twice and made Travis feel suspicious that maybe this was the guy who was taking the stuff out of our neighborhood. So he dropped off his guests eventually, went home, got in the car with his father, Greg, and they drove to the area under the Fancy Bluffs Bridge. There they saw the man. And what you see up here is the call, basically what's called a CAD report. It's basically a report made of Greg McMichaels' 911 call to the Glenn County Police to say, hey, basically, there's a guy under the bridge we think is responsible. Could you please investigate? And the police did. They sent an officer out there, and really nothing of note was found. And the investigation ended. But the break-ins, the theft, didn't end, especially for a man named Larry English. For Mr. English, it was only beginning. Larry English, as you heard, lives in Douglas, Georgia. He was so excited to have a weekend home in Satilla Shores on this beautiful little Satilla River. He built a home. He was going to use it for weekends and vacations with his wife Amy, his daughter Laura, his son Hoyt. And so it took time, delays and all that with contractors and himself having issues with health. But he started building a home in Satilla Shores for use as a vacation place, a getaway. He built a dock. His home is right here, in the dock, on the river. He had a boat on a hoist at the dock, and he had a large offshore boat in his RV garage. In that garage, and I promise not to touch the screen, is this large garage. But that's where he kept, it's called an RV garage, but it's really a boat garage for Mr. English. Eventually, because of some advice from his neighbor, Kenny Wade, who lived next door, he installed a camera at the dock and one on the back of his house, which you can't see from this photo. He was concerned about liability because kids were playing out there and they would take his scraps of wood, they would hang out by the dock. But he was also concerned about theft because he had valuables at his house. He had 2 boats, sometimes 3 boats, and he parked his camper on the property, which you can't see in the picture, but you'll see eventually. His camper that he stayed in, sometimes alone, sometimes with his wife and kids, when they came to the house either to work on it or to play at it. So he was concerned about all of this when he installed those cameras. Over the course of the next 3-4 months, he saw on his cameras at night Ahmaud Arbery 4 times. The first time, and this is the first time his camera alerted at all, was October 25th, 2019. Now remember, he's in Douglas, Georgia. He has a cell phone. When his camera spots somebody, he gets an alert on his cell phone. This is a photograph of Ahmaud Arbery on his dock, October 25th, 2019. He gets this alert. He sees this man. He calls Glenn County Police Department. Can't call 911 because 911 would go to Douglas Police. But he calls the 911 number for Glenn County Police. And he's scared. And he's concerned. What is this guy doing at my house at night? There is no legitimate reason, according to Mr. English, for this man to be at his house where his boats are stored, where his camper is parked at night. And he calls the police. He's concerned not only for his stuff, but he's concerned for his family. Because what if Amy was there at the camper alone? What if his daughter, Laura, was there sleeping there that night? And she walks outside and bumps into this intruder. And he gets scared, and he panics, and she panics, and something really, really awful happens. These are the thoughts that went through Larry English's mind when he sees this intruder in his house on October 25th, 2019. He calls back Glenn County a second time after this initial call. Go back a little bit. Okay. Because he calls the police to tell them that the man who's on the dock, and he describes him as plundering around, describes his tattoos, describes his hair twists. The man who was in his house plundering around has now gone across the street towards his other neighbor's house. He describes it as a, I think, whitish, yellowish house. It's Subi Lawrence's house. It's a neighbor he knows. Subi is a single mom. She's a mother of 3 boys. The boys who play outside and ride their bikes and steal Larry English's scraps of wood for their skateboard ramp or their fort or whatever they're doing. This is who Mr. English sees and who he's concerned about. And he wants the police to confront this man and tell him, don't come back. He doesn't see him take anything. Remember, he's only got cameras on the back of the house right now. 1 camera, back of the house, and 1 camera at the dock. He wants him removed. By the time police come, and I think it's Officer Rash who responds that first time. Robert Rash, you'll hear from Officer Rash. No sign of Mr. Arbery, who is a man we later find out is Ahmaud Arbery. No sign. Now he's okay with curiosity seekers coming to his house. We've all done it. You see a house under construction. It looks kind of interesting. Oh, what are the neighbors building? What are they adding on? What's the staircase going to look like? He's okay with all that. He's okay with the kids coming in during the daytime, taking the scraps of wood. It didn't matter to him. What concerned him was there is no reason that's legitimate to be there at night. And that's why he calls the police. Sometime after October 25th, Mr. English is on a ladder in his RV garage, looks in his offshore boat, and realizes his satellite system, his Yeti cooler, and his microphone system are gone. Taken out of the boat. He doesn't know who did it. He does know the HVAC guys were in that area installing some of the not pipes, some of the system in there. He also knows the black male from October 25th was in there. And so he's suspicious. But what can he do? The next alert on his phone is November 17th. November 17th, a white couple comes on his property at night, 10 o'clock at night. They park out by the porta potty that you saw in the earlier picture. The man has his belt unbuckled. Odd. Comes in the house and he calls 911 and he says, about a week and a half to 2 weeks ago, I had my stuff stolen. This is now November 17th. Week and a half, 2 weeks ago is pretty close to October 25th. I've had my stuff stolen. They're in the same area. They're going around where the boat is in the RV garage. Please send an officer out. Officers go out. The couple's gone. They see nothing. Mr. English is upset and he's frustrated. He has valuables stored at the house. Stuff has been stolen. Now 2 people have been seen on his cameras, 3 people, 2 white people and a black male. And so the next morning, November 18th, he goes and he gets his boat and he hauls it away. Figures, I just can't keep valuables in this house that's open, but is owned by him with his valuables. And so he takes the boat away. That very night, November 18th, He sees the same black male he saw on October 25th. The man we now know is Ahmaud Arbery. He's back again. He's seen around the boat, not the big offshore boat, but the other boats. And according to Mr. English, he's plundering around again. He calls Glenn County Police again. Glenn County Police arrive again. And again, Mr. Arbery gets away without being confronted by the police. And Mr. English is frustrated. Of course. He's so frustrated that the very next day, November 19th, these are all out of order, and this is why we don't use technology. All right, November 18th, 2019. This is the night he sees Ahmaud Arbery for the second time. There's somebody back on the property again tonight. Black man, not wearing a shirt, in late November, got tattoos on his arms and a pair of light-colored shorts. He's wandering in the carport, looking in the boat, not the offshore boat, the smaller boat. The same guy that was here about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago. The night before, he's calling police saying, my stuff was stolen a week and a half, 2 weeks before. He kind of looks like he's up to no good. He's on 3 different people's cameras in the neighborhood. This is Larry English's 911 call on November 18th, 2019. November 19th, the very next day, he has an exchange through text message with his 2 doors down neighbor, Diego Perez. Diego Perez is another person who believes it's his duty and responsibility to look out not just for himself, but for his neighbors. And so Diego has this conversation with Larry English. This is a printout from an extraction from Larry English's phone. So, and you'll see this in evidence. And it's out of order, the way it's printed out. So I'm going to kind of walk you through it, because the first exchange is from Larry English. He sends Diego Perez clips of the videos from the white couple on the 17th of November and the black male on the 18th of November. And he says to Diego Perez, who he just knows as Diego Satilla Shores, that's how he's in his phone. They're not friends, they're just neighbors, good neighbors. And he says to Diego, have you seen these people in the neighborhood? And Diego says, no, sir. I can't say I've ever seen them in the neighborhood, but I'll keep an eye out. I can respond in mere seconds, because he's only 2 doors down. With your permission. Larry English says, you have my permission. And Diego says, I may be able to intercept them or pen them up for the police. I may be able to intercept them or pen them up for the police. Diego Perez is taking it upon himself, if he can, to perform a citizen's arrest. I'm going to hold them until the police come. And Larry English's response to that, thank you. Because seconds count. Diego Perez knows it. Larry English now knows it. Because 3 times he's tried to catch his intruders, and 3 times he's failed because the police just get there too late. As Diego Perez artfully put it, when seconds count, the police are minutes away. And so he needs the help of Diego Perez and other neighbors. Officer Rash, who responds to these calls, he canvasses the neighborhood. He's trying to catch this guy. And so he canvasses the neighborhood using stills from the video. Have you seen this guy? Do you know him? Can you help me help Larry English? And no one knows him. He's not jogging in the neighborhood. No one's ever seen him. The only time we see Ahmaud Arbery in Satilla Shores is at night on these cameras. And remember, people have cameras in the neighborhood. If he was in there jogging in the daytime, you would see evidence of that. So November 19th, Diego Perez offers to help. Officer Rash canvasses the neighborhood. He's still a mystery. He is at this point a scary mystery, because he's plundering around Larry English's house, and now everybody knows it. Officer Rash has canvassed the neighborhood. Larry English is talking to neighbors like Matt Albenzi, like Subi Lawrence, like his neighbor Diego and his wife Brooke Perez. It's being posted on Facebook, on the neighborhood Facebook page. Word is out that stuff was stolen from Larry English's house, parked in his RV garage. Now, I want to be clear. In May, after Travis McMichael was arrested, Larry English realizes he doesn't really know when the stuff was stolen. It was back in Douglas. It was in the house on Satilla Drive. But what he was telling people in October, November, December, January, February 2020 is that the stuff was taken out of my boat, parked at my house on Satilla Drive. That's what the neighbors knew from Larry English and Officer Rash. He's back at the house, Ahmaud Arbery, on December 17th. This is now the third time seen on camera at Larry English's house. He's at night. He has no legitimate reason for being there. And remember, although you're seeing him through infrared cameras, it is pitch black in that house. There is no light. There's no lights on, there's no light switch, no light bulbs. It is pitch dark. And on December 17th, Ahmaud Arbery is seen plundering around again in the area where the boats were located in that RV garage. Police are not called that night. There's no 911 call. Larry English can't remember why he didn't call police. He may have been sick and not seen this video until much later. And you saw the clip of the video with Ahmaud Arbery walking outside the house, looking around again, and taking off into the neighborhood. And the question remains, was he out for a jog? 10 o'clock at night, December 17th? Or was he doing something else? And we'll never know. But it sure does look suspicious. The next time he's seen in Larry English's house is February 11th, 2020. This is now the fourth time in the house. But this time is different. Because this time it's not Larry English who calls the police. It's Travis McMichael. The state got the facts a little bit wrong. So let me correct them. Travis McMichael was going out that night, about 7:30 at night, it's dark, to get gas, fill up his car before the next day. He had to be at work early, so he was just going to fill up his car that night, so he wouldn't have to wake up so early in the morning the next day. On his way up the street, and he's at 230 Satilla, this is the exit up here, this is English's house. As he gets up here, he sees a figure dart across the street. And this figure, now he realizes it's a man, is lurking in the shadows 25 to 30 feet from the street. Kind of staying in the shadows very furtively, catches Travis's attention. He has no idea who this is. He's never met Ahmaud Arbery. But he sees this guy, and he sees this guy kind of running across the lawn. It's really initially the house next door, kind of a Spanish-style house. And he runs across the yard, and he hides behind that red porta potty that you saw in that photograph. Travis is like, this is not good. We know about a guy intruding in Larry English's house. And he stops his car, and he kind of aims his headlights at the porta potty. And knowing there is no legitimate reason for this man to be there, he starts to get out of his car to ask him why he's there. Well, this guy steps out from the porta potty, and he reaches with his left hand, I believe, into his waist, as if reaching for a weapon. This scares the heck out of Travis. He sees this, he's trying to get out, gets in his car, puts it in reverse, stalls because he's so startled, eventually backs up and gets home, where he calls 911, and this is what he says. This is the 911 call. We're not going to play the whole thing because it's too long.
We got a string of records. I was with my neighborhood, and I just called down running into a house in the village. Two houses down the road. When I turned around, she took off running into the house. What did you look like? The black male, red shirt, white shorts. And you said the house is being built? It's being built. I'm mistaken right now. He's in the house. What's the name of the car? Travis McMichaels. 423-1374. All right. Where are you at now? I'm sitting across the street in my truck. Watching it now. Watching that trailer. I'm here at 6 Where are you at? Red Ford. Are you okay? Yeah, I just told me, when I turned around, calling and backed up, he reached into his pocket and ran into the house. So I don't know if he's armed or not. He looked like he was acting like he was. So, be mindful of that. Okay. Which pocket did he reach into? The left, I believe. Okay.
He goes on to say later on, it's about 3 or 4 minutes later, so we don't need to waste your time, is we've been having a lot of burglaries and break-ins around here lately. So now here we are, this guy who has seen Travis see him and seen Travis drive away, still has the audacity, the brazenness to go into the English house. Travis is home calling 911. Greg McMichael overhears, and he starts going up to the English house. And he's got his firearm with him. And Travis says, whoa, slow down. Turns out Travis ends up going up there with him, and Travis has his firearm. Diego Perez, who by now has been alerted by Larry English with his video clips, he goes out there, he's armed. These neighbors are going to Larry English's house not because it's fun at 8 o'clock at night in February in Satilla Shores, but because it's their duty and responsibility to each other to protect each other, to do what they can to help the police stop the guy who's plundering around, breaking into Larry English's house. Officer Rash gets called. They are all out. Officer Rash, 2 other officers, Diego Perez, Greg McMichael, Travis McMichael, all out trying to find the guy, Ahmaud Arbery, who's now for the 4th time in Larry English's house. Officer Rash appreciates the help. He never tells Greg McMichael, Travis McMichael, or Diego Perez, hey guys, let the police handle this. We got this. No problem. You guys go home. He never tells them, hey, put those guns away. We don't need guns out here. Don't carry guns around here.